I got it. It's sick again. You know what I'm saying? Jeez. Alright, let's get into this biatch. Conditioning in MMA. I'm going to be honest. For me personally, there's nothing worse than gassing out in a fight. Bloody fly in my face. Gassing out in a fight, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst ways to lose. Because I know, deep down, that's something that I can do. Something that I have control over. Because it obviously means I've not learnt my fitness and my conditioning hard enough. And there's nothing worse coming out of a fight knowing that you lost because of you not doing enough baseline running or not doing enough conditioning with the sled or conditioning with the air bike. And I'll be totally honest, I'm quite harsh on myself. So I'm going to say I'm totally ashamed of the way I've handled my training. If I gas in a fight, I gassed in my first fight and it was the worst experience of my entire life. You don't enjoy things when you're knackered, and there's nothing worse just watching a fight, knowing you're technically better, you're more powerful, you're faster and all that, and you lose just because you're gassing the last single round of the fight. The last round, that's just because you've not worked hard enough or you've not worked smart enough maybe, and you've not focused on your conditioning. That is one of the elements that you can do something about. Power and maybe even speed, sometimes you have a little bit more genetics with it, but conditioning, I'm a big believer in thinking it's on you. On you. I've got a good gas tank because my life I've swam, and that is like a longer endurance and event. So when I came into fighting, naturally I was quite fit, but I wasn't conditioned to MMA, and that's what we're going to move into. But first, let's start with supplementation. You supplement in the morning. You may not, but I do. Omega-3s, vitamin B12, multivits, vitamin D3K2, all these things are supplements. But if I can get them with food, for example, choline, that's a supplement I need to take. But I take that with food, so I take eggs. I have 6 eggs a day to get my choline from the yolks. This is the same with your S&C. Doing a lot of S&C does not make you fight fit. Just to let you know, a little secret. Wrestling and sparring are the two most important things in your schedule in order to get fight fit. I'm going to say even more to the wrestling side, because if you're wrestling fit, you're most likely ready to go at it. When I train for a fight, I just like wrestling really, really hard, because if I'm fit for wrestling rounds and rounds and rounds, I know the fight is a piece of piss. But that S&C is to supplement these 2 sessions. I see so often people doing S&C instead of wrestling or sparring. Why? It's not a competition of how fast you can run or the furthest you can run. It's a competition of who can knock the other person out or submit them or win on the judges' scorecards. And you don't particularly get that from S&C over wrestling and sparring. But that does not mean S&C is not important. It's still very, very important, but wrestling and sparring is the priority. So if you're doing that instead of wrestling and sparring, you need to sort your timetable out first. But first off, what is the difference between fitness and conditioning? Now, fitness is your VO2 max. As you can see in this I was going to say video, this photo in the background, this is me doing a VO2 max. I believe, off the top of my head, I got 62. And that was after a fight, and then I went Ibiza for 4 days, got pissed up, probably the first time I got pissed up in the whole year. It was like October. Went out, 2 nights out I was absolutely wrote off. I came back and my gas tank had gone, just from all the drinks. But this is doing a VO2 max. As soon as I got back from that, I think I got 62, which is still a pretty good result. It was either 62 or 60, but I can't quite remember. I'd have to have a look. Now, conditioning. This is the ability to apply your fitness to a certain sport. Now, for me, and for you watching, it's for MMA. So your conditioning is your ability to apply the fitness, your VO2 max and all those aspects to MMA. But remember, MMA is not a competition of how fast you can run. So my VO2 max might be a lot better than someone else, but their conditioning for MMA might be a lot better than me. So to be successful, you need to convert your fitness into conditioning, and this is dependent on your fight. 3 to 5 rounds. Amateur, 3 minutes. Professional, 5 minutes. So if you're fighting for a world title fight in the UFC, you've got to be ready for 25 minutes of MMA, not 25 minutes of running. Because I tell you for a fact, 25 minutes for running is so easy compared to 25 minutes of MMA. Hands down. I'd rather... I'm even going to say 5 minutes of MMA is harder than 25 minutes of running in a fight. Yeah, definitely. Next bit. Now conditioning. This is person dependent. So for me, it's going to be a little bit different to you. It's all really, I believe, your muscular endurance. If you are fit, it's all down to your muscles. Can your muscles endure the activities you are doing for this sustainable time? So can they endure for 25 minutes or 15 minutes or 9 minutes if you're an amateur in the MMA? Do you get burnt out, basically? Do your arms burnt out when you've gone for a few takedowns? Do your legs get heavy when you've defended a few takedowns? Does your front shoulder get really achy after lobbing in a few jabs? That is just a few examples of conditioning. Now I'm going to say me personally. Mine will most likely be my legs and my arms, but it all also depends on what sort of fight you are doing. For example, if you're going against a heavy wrestler, your legs are probably going to be a bit more knackered because you're going to have to be taking impact when they're on your back and you've got to be standing up and sprawling, being heavy with your hips. Arms could be more achy when you have to either, for your shoulders, throw loads of strikes for your boxing, or your actual forearms will be for grappling. So it all depends on the style of fights. But some examples that I do personally is air bikes, sleds and AMRAPs. They help with my conditioning. I like the air bike because it is conditioning, doing your shoulders, your arms and your legs, as well as that, it's your fitness as well. So I find it in both. So it helps my fitness and it helps my conditioning. The sledge, similar sort of principle. It helps both factors. AMRAPs, you can make it a bit more targeted now. If you struggle with your forearms and they burn so much, some examples that you could do is pull-up holds. So you're literally on a bar, straight arms out, and you're just going to hold, minute holds. And then you're going to go with a barbell along the squat rack, and you can do turns with the kettlebell with a band on. Then you can do farmer's carries. They're all for your forearms. I'm not going to get tired in that, like out of breath. That's all conditioning, nothing to do with fitness. So you just got to find what aspects that you struggle with personally and attack them. If you avoid them, you are never going to get fitter for MMA and be able to last the later rounds. That's what you've always got to remember. Don't matter how fit you are, can you last 3 or 5 rounds? Because if you can last those rounds, sweet, you are tick, fight fit. But if you're fit and you're talking in context of, I beat my 5k time, that does not matter if you cannot convert it to those 3 to 5 rounds for MMA. And then your fitness. Your fitness is your long-term success. And this is a base. You want a solid base in order to have that long-term success. And I look at it as a pyramid. The pyramid, what is the bottom compared to the top? A lot bigger. So you got a pyramid, like so. As you go up, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it makes that peak. So the bottom bit is your foundation. It is your base. You'll have different zones, but the 3 that I concentrate on are the aerobic, threshold and the red zone. You've got the zones underneath, but I do that from walking, so I'm not really too fussed about looking into that because I don't need it for me personally. So you got this pyramid. This bottom bit here, we're going to talk about your aerobic. If you want to go even more in depth, you'll have the 70% and below, so you might go 70 to 60 or 70 to 50 that you're going to work on. But aerobic capacity, I'm going to work on that first. I want to get that big. I'm going to do that for my long, steady runs. I'm not trying to get a fast time. I'm trying to keep my heart rate at a consistent rate for a long period of time. Next up, we have the threshold. So I work my threshold at 85%. I work around that barrier. And that's the kind of zone I want to stay in. Technically on the heart rate monitor zone, When you have a strap, it'll go up to 89.9%. But when I'm on the bike, I look at like 85% sort of range. And then you have your red zone, and that is 90% and above. If you're always working your red zone and you never work your aerobic zone, your red zone will be here, but your aerobic zone will be down here. So let's say this is small and this is big. Imagine a pyramid upside down. What's going to happen? It's going to fall over. So if your red zone is sick, absolutely massive, you're going to be great in the first 5 minutes of a fight. But if your aerobic zone is absolutely crap and your red zone's massive, when it gets to the second round, third round, or even the fourth, you're going to gas because you haven't got that base of cardio. So if you want to last those later rounds, extend the base. The bigger the base, the bigger the peak. And that is how your fitness works. If you are a knockout artist, let's say McGregor, knockout artist, he's definitely got a good red zone because he's sick in the first round. But as he gets to the later stages, you can see him fading a little bit, and that's because his aerobic zone, his aerobic capacity isn't quite as big, and that's how your fitness works in MMA. So with this, just make sure you distinguish between the two. Conditioning, can your muscles take the impact of the rounds you're going to do? And your fitness, can your cardio uptake the amount of time you're going to do in the cage? If you get tired, out of breath in the later rounds of a fight, it's most likely your aerobic zone. If you get knackered, as in your muscles get knackered at the end of the fight, that's your conditioning. So find out what is the problem with you and attack that, and that's how you're going to get your ultimate, what I call fight ready fitness. Not I'm fit, because I'm always fit. Always fit. There's never a day I'm not fit. But when we're talking fight fit, it's a little bit different. A little bit different. And that's today's video on conditioning v fitness. So remember, they're the 2 points. Fitness is your VO2 max. This one. Conditioning is how well you can use that in a certain sport. And I like to say it as your muscular endurance. To succeed, you need to convert those fitness into your conditioning. And if you got this far, hit that subscribe button so we can tune in for the next one, which will be obviously tomorrow. I will see you then. Bish, bash, bosh, pow. Oh, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Is that my t-shirt? Is that my t-shirt? Oh, it's only gone and got my name on it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They just made that for me. You know what I'm saying? Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Yeah? Boom.